Greeting go-getters. How you doing? How you doing? This is Professor Gooden. I miss you guys so much. Miss you so much. You cannot even imagine. But I know most importantly, you guys need to stay safe, which is why we're not able to go back to school as of yet. So I do understand that. I don't like us being so far apart. I love seeing your little crazy faces, how you guys make me laugh, how you drove me crazy, all of that. I miss it all. But I hope that you're enjoying this time with your families. I'm really working at making sure I don't give you too much work to complete daily, but enough for you to sustain your learning. As we get going here, go ahead and pause the video, grab your math journal so we can take some notes as we move along in our second lesson of Unit 7. We are continuing to talk about the Cartesian plane. Today, what we're going to talk about is the reflection or reflections on a coordinate plane. So first thing I would like for you is to write down excuse me, the title for today. Pause the video and write down the title for today, okay? As you're doing that, I am going to just get my pointer. And you should have paused it and gotten your math journal by now, so let's go ahead and move on in the lesson. So today we're talking about reflections on a coordinate plane. Just to remind you of the Cartesian plane, and you notice I'm using Cartesian coordinate. They're interchangeable, okay? The plane has two axes. We have the y-axis, which is vertical. The top of the y-axis is positive, and the bottom is negative. We have our x-axis, which is horizontal. The right of the x-axis is positive, and the left is negative. Also, as a reminder, we have 4 quadrants. Here is quadrant 1, and in quadrant 1, the x coordinate is always positive, and the y coordinate is always positive. As we go over here to quadrant 2, when we're looking at points, our x coordinate is always negative and our y coordinate is always positive. Moving down to the bottom where we have quadrant 3, not sure why I got black, that's not the color I wanted. Let's go with green. In quadrant 3, we will notice that our points, our y and x, are both always negative. Moving over to quadrant 4, our x coordinate is always positive and our y is always negative. And this was just a quick review of the Cartesian plane. Okay, I'm going to continue by just plotting a point to remind you again of how to do that. If we're looking at the ordered pair, that is 9, that will be on our x-axis, and a value of, let's say, 10, that will be on our, I hope I said x before, on our y. Our 9 is on our x and y would be 10. So we start at the origin and I'm moving over on the x-axis to where the location of 9 is. And then I'm going to move up as I'm traveling on the y-axis to 10. Again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's where I would plot 9, 10. Okay, so now as we continue into our lesson for today, that was just a review, guys. What is a reflection? As you see here with this crazy picture of myself, I have shown you what a reflection looks like in the real world. We tend to think of a mirror, and a reflection is a mirror, okay? If you notice, I could draw a line right down the middle where the reflection is occurring, okay? On this side, you see a picture of the same type on this side of our red line. So what is a reflection? You are going to write this next slide in your journal. A reflection is a mirror image of a shape or a point on the opposite side of a line. A reflection is a mirror image of a shape or a point on the opposite side of a line. What does that look like in the real world? In the real world, if you notice, here we have a mountaintop with some snow reflecting in the water. Again, I can draw a line where the reflection starts to occur. Now, here is an example in the real world. Moving over here, we have another example of a reflection where I can draw a line, a horizontal line that shows where the reflection of this person is being mirrored into the water. The first reflection I showed was a picture of myself. And the picture of myself, guys, had a vertical line. This vertical line would represent the y-axis. As I move on to these examples, these horizontal line would represent the x-axis. So that's what we're going to talk about as we move on in talking about reflections on a coordinate plane, okay? And no, you don't need to add this to your journal. In math, we can reflect points, we can reflect lines, we can reflect shapes. The only thing that we're focusing on today is reflection of points, okay? So yes, you can add this in your journal, how reflections occur. In math, we can reflect points, lines, and shapes. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to. So what happens if I change the x coordinate? When we change the x coordinate to create a reflection, a particular action occurs. So what we're going to do is go through these examples and see if you can visualize and see what is happening with the x coordinate when we change it. So here is an example where the x coordinate starts out as 3, the y coordinate is 3, and then we have an ordered pair of 3, 3. Well, let's show what 3, 3 looks like. I start at the origin, and then I move over on my x-axis to 3, positive 3, and I'm going to move up to positive 3 on the y coordinate, on the y-axis, and I'm going to plot my point. So that's my first ordered pair of 3, 3. Well, now I'm going to change the x. I'm going to change the x coordinate. I'm still going to start at the origin, but this time, instead of moving positive 3, I'm going to move negative 3 on the x-axis. But I'm still going to travel up to positive 3 on the y-axis. Do you see what happened here? We started here where our x was positive 3. Let me make that a little neater. You guys know how I am. So let me go ahead and try to make this a little neater. Here's our x, and here's our y. Over here, here's our x. This is where I changed it to negative 3, and our y remain positive 3. And here you can see the difference of the points. Let's go down and plot the next one. I'm going to use a different color to show it, okay? So now let's look at the ordered pair where our x is negative 5, our y is 1. Ordered pair, negative 5, 1. Let's go ahead and plot that. We're starting at the origin, and we're going to travel on our x over to negative 5. And then we're going to move down on our y to -3. And here we're going to plot our point. Our point is -5, comma, wait a second, let me move it back. It's not -3, it's -5, +1. I know someone caught that, trust me. And that's what go-getters do. We pay attention and we see when an error occurs. So again, we just plot -5, comma, 1, start at the origin, -5, comma, 1. Let's see what happens when we change the x coordinate. So instead of having a -5, we now have a +5, comma, 1. We start at the origin, we move over to x, and then we travel up to 1. I hope you guys are seeing the pattern. Let's look at our last example here in changing the x coordinate. Sorry about the background noise, guys. So here we have -3 for our x coordinate and a -y, with a -3 for our y coordinate. Here we have it together as an ordered pair. We're going to start at the origin, travel over to -3, and then move down to -3. Plot our point. And then I keep using green so you can see that is where we're changing our x coordinate. So now we've changed it to +3, but we're keeping our y at -3. So we start at the origin, move over to +3, and travel down to -3. At this time, I would like for you to pause the video, add this to your journal, add this example to your journal. And yes, you have time because you're at home and I'm not moving on in the classroom. You are working at your own pace. So go ahead and add this to your journal. And as you're adding this, I want you to think about what is happening to the point. I know some of you are seeing, Professor Gooden, I can see it's reflecting, but what does it mean when it reflects? Pause it and then come back, okay? Pause it and then come back. Okay, guys, you should be back. I took a little break too to go get my coffee this morning. So hopefully you have added this example in your journal and thought about what happens when we change the x coordinates in an ordered pair. And I'm going to reveal what happens. What happens is there is a reflection of the point across the y-axis. Now, I know you're thinking, what do you mean by that? Well, let me show you what we did. Here, when we started out, okay, let me make this smaller. Larger for you guys, because I want you to be able to see this. Let's take the dual page off and go back. Remember our first point when we started? 3, 3, 3, 3, and then we change. Let me circle that. Going to circle it. So this is where we started, 3, 3, and then we changed the x-axis to a -3 instead of positive, but we kept our y, and then this was the point that was created. The original point reflected across the y-axis. We started here, and when we change the x coordinate, it reflects across the y. We look at our second point down here, right down here. When we changed the x coordinate, it reflected across the y. And again, here's another example. Let me come down here and circle this one. Here is our original point. This is our third point right down here, 3, -3. When we changed the x coordinate, it reflected across the y. So to answer the question, what happens if I change the x coordinate? What happens is there is a reflection of the point across the y-axis. Again, if you're not understanding, please rewind, watch it again. That is the beauty of having the video of the lesson, okay? So it may take a couple times watching this for you to totally comprehend it. And remember, that's okay. It's all about understanding. It's not about speed. So let's move on. Let's think about the question, what happens if I change the y coordinate? And I'm going to move a little bit swifter because I know your time is precious, okay? So here we have our x coordinate, we have our y coordinate, and then we put it together and we have our ordered pair. What we're doing this time is we're changing the y coordinate. And you'll notice all the changes are in green. So we started out with our x being 0 and our y being 3. We're going to change our y, here it is right here. Let me go ahead and label it. We're going to change our y, and you already know what your teacher is going to say. That is not neat enough. Let me make it nicer. We're going to change our y in each of these examples. So let's go ahead and plot our first point. We start at 0, 0, which is known as our origin. That's correct. So we start here at our origin, and we're going to not move on our x because it's at 0. And then we're going to travel down on our y-axis and plot our first point. And our first point, what I'm going to do this time is go ahead and label it. Our first point is, see if they'll make me copy this, see if I can copy it. And then just paste it down here. There we go. Here is our first point, 0, 3. Okay. Oh, your teacher is moving way too fast right now. That's not 0, 3. That's 0, -3. I plotted the change first. I was so excited. But I am going to go and plot our original, which is 0, +3. And we're going to put that in blue. Here is our original. And now I can label it right here. 0, +3. I keep wanting to say negative. So here is 0, +3. And then we have a reflection occurring at 0, -3 because we change the y. Let's plot another one. All right, pay attention. Make sure I get this right, okay? All right, so here we go. We have -4, 1. We started our origin, move to -4, and then we're going to travel on our y-axis up to +1. And let's plot our original ordered pair, -1, 1. And yes, let's label it. And I know some of you are taking notes as we're moving. Guess what? It is okay. It is okay. So here we have the point of -4, 1. And now we're going to change the y coordinate as I'm showing right here. Still going to keep the x at -4, but our y is now -1. We started our origin. We are going to move to -4 on the x-axis and down to -1 on the y-axis. Let me make sure I have a green to show that, a green. -4 to -1. Hopefully you all are recognizing the pattern that's happening. Let's label that point as well. And then we have our last ordered pair, which is -2, -3. So we have, starting at our origin, -2, -3. Okay, and let's move this out the way so it's not blocking what we're doing here. We're going to have to share it, so let's change this color to red. -2, comma, -3, and it would be right here. Okay, and let's go ahead and label it. And then we are going to plot where we change the y coordinate, -2, comma, 3. Again, starting at the origin, -2, comma, 3. And that's where we're going to go right there. What your teacher is going to do is place this on the opposite side and take this and bring it over. Oopsie daisy. Doesn't want to rotate the way I want it to, so let's just do that. And then we draw it on this side. There we go. Okay, so let's plot again our last change of the y coordinate, -2, comma, 3. Start at the origin, -2, comma, 3. And of course, we are going to label our point. So now what I want you to do, guys, is add this to your journal. Add this example to your journal if you haven't been doing it while I was teaching it. It's perfectly fine if you waited. Add this to your journal. And as you're adding this to your journal, think about what is happening as we change the y coordinate in these ordered pairs. Each of them we change. 3 to -3, 1 to -1, -3 to +3. What happened to the point each time? What happened? Think about it. Pause the video. I'm going to pause, take a sip of my coffee, and I'll be back. Okay? So what did you all notice happening to the points? What did you notice? Of course, I cannot hear you nor see you to think, that person is thinking about it. So let's reveal what happens. What happens if I change the y coordinate? There's a reflection of the point across the x-axis, across the x. So that's what I was showing each time. We started at 0, went up to +3. Here's our point. And then it reflected when we changed the +3 to a -3, and it reflected across the x. Same thing with -4, comma, 1, which was our original ordered pair. When I changed the y coordinate, it reflected across the x. And the last one, when we changed -2, -3, we changed the -3 to a positive, it reflected, the point reflected across the x. So what happens when we change the y coordinate in an ordered pair? There is a reflection of the point across the x. Let's make sure we add this to our journal as well. Go ahead and pause the video, okay? So now let's look at what happens if we change both the x and the y. So I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to plot. I want you guys to just watch, okay? hang on here. As you can see, I changed the original, so this is what it was supposed to look like. So let's plot this last one again. Let's go ahead and fix that. Fix it to match the original, and then change it over here. There we go. So as you think about what was happening, guys, I'm going to go ahead and label each of the points, okay? So we've already labeled 1, 3, which is right here. -1, -3, which is right here. Now let's go ahead and show where -5, -2 is. -5, -2 is right here, okay? And then let's show where the change of both the coordinates happened, where we have 5, 2, 5, 2 is right here. Okay, then the last one, if you notice, I had -4, 1, and then instead of keeping it right here, I made a mistake, and I changed it before I got a chance to actually plot it. So that's what you saw me fixing. Okay, so hopefully that didn't cause any confusions. If so, write the message in Mobymax and I can explain it to you. So here we have -4, 1, and then your teacher was able to go and actually fix it, change it to show where 4, -1 is. So what happened, guys? What happened as we change both X and Y coordinate? What happened? I want you to pause the video as you're adding this example to your journal. Think about what happened as we change both the X and the Y. If you notice, they're both in green now. We changed the X and the Y. Let me label it. X and Y got changed. So what happened? Pause the video, add this to your journal, and then come back. I'm going to pause, take a sip as well. Okay. If you didn't see what was happening, if you weren't able to see it the first time, hopefully you rewound the video and watched it again. What happened when we changed both the X and Y coordinate? There is a reflection of the point across both the X and Y axis. There's a reflection across both of the axes. So let me show you that. Here we started with, let's just take this one right here. Here we started with -5, -2. Here is -5, -2. When we changed it to 5, 2, let's show where we are reflecting all the way across both. Look, here we go, here we go. Oh, just went over the X and the Y to 5, 2. Let's look at the first one. We plotted 1, 3. Here is 1, 3. Then we change both of the coordinates to -1, -3. And look, we're moving down to -1, -3. Okay? So please, please rewind this and watch it again in case you don't remember. Okay? And here your teacher should have changed this to X and Y. Remember, I always tell you guys, everybody makes mistakes. And I love recording because then it shows all the mistakes that I too make. Okay? So I'll never want you to feel that, oh my goodness, I messed up again. No. As you can see, there were several things that your teacher messed up on, and it's totally okay. because we learn from our mistakes. Okay, so here we have, oh Jesus, leave it alone, good. Okay, you know I'm trying to make it look cute for you guys and nice and neat. So hopefully this lesson was a breeze to learn. I know I went over 3 different actions. What happens when we change the X coordinate, and what happens when we change the Y, and then what happens when we change both. So just to review what you should have in your journal, you should have the title, okay? Then you should have the definition of what a reflection is. Next, you should have how we see, how do we reflect in math? The 3 ways. We only covered points today. Then you should have, excuse me, our first example added. And of course, you don't have to do all the extra circles, just show the points. Here, you could have labeled the points like we did. Then you're going to tell, and not tell, but write what actually happens. This is where we show what happens, and this is where we write what happens. Then you should also have the example of what happens when we change the Y coordinate. So this is where we're showing what happens, and then we answer the question, what happens when we change the Y coordinate. Then you should have added the example of what happens when we change both X and Y coordinates. Let's put an S on here because it's both, okay? Always a teacher, never just math, ELA included here. And then you answer the question, what happens if I change both my X and Y coordinates? There's a reflection. So this brings us to the end of our lesson, guys. What you're going to do is make sure you log into Smart Notebook to get your assignments where you're going to practice some of these. And I will have the list of the other items that you will need to work on today. Have an amazing, amazing Monday. It is March 23rd. And oh my goodness, 6 more days. It's my birthday. But anyway, miss you guys. And I look forward to hearing from you today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.